Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure and privilege to welcome you all once again for this distinguished lecture series on energy efficiency, the 15th in series for this month. We are very privileged to have Sri Abhay Bakre, Director General, Bureau of Energy Efficiency, Ministry of Government of India, to deliver the distinguished lectures today, the distinguished lecture on energy efficiency today. Mr. Bakre is known to all of us. Mr. Abhay Bakre is the Director General of Bureau of Energy Efficiency, and under his leadership, several initiatives for accelerating energy efficiency has been taken up in a variety of sectors across the entire country. Many new schemes have been and programs have been launched under his leadership, and under his leadership as the Director General, Bureau of Energy Efficiency has been playing a key role in achieving India's climate change goal. Mr. Bakre is also the Sherpa for Clean Energy Ministerial Platform of 26 government members. The objective of this platform is to initiate new policies and programs to facilitate climate change mitigation and energy transition in the country. Apart from his present designation as the Director General of Bureau of Energy Efficiency, Mr. Bakre has worked in various capacities in the government. He was earlier the Executive Director in the Ministry of Railways. He was a nodal officer for GHG reduction in Indian Railways. Several activities have been taken up in Indian Railways under his leadership, and phenomenal improvements and achievements have been taken up in Indian Railways when Mr. Bakre was in charge of energy efficiency activities in Indian Railways. Several railway projects, Delhi Metro and Kolkata Metro extension projects, were some of the major initiatives where Mr. Bakre was involved. He was Joint Development Commissioner in the Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, and was also the nodal officer for National Manufacturing Competitiveness Program. Another very important activity where Mr. Bakre was involved was the head of Petroleum Conservation Research Association. During this time, he was responsible for initiating fuel conservation policy in transport sector and appliance sector, which many of us know have paid significant dividends. He represented the Ministry of Power at the G20 ministerial meeting at Argentina in 2018, at Japan in 2019, and of course, through the virtual mode, the G20 summit hosted by Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in 2020. Mr. Bakre is an alumni of IIT Kharagpur. Apart from all this, Mr. Bakre, having known him and interacted with him for more than a decade, Mr. Bakre is a person of deep thought and action, and deep thought, and many of his thoughts also get converted into action. We are privileged to have Mr. Bakre be here with us and deliver his distinguished lecture on energy efficiency. Over to you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Venkatagiri, for my introduction, and thank you so much for inviting me in this lecture series. So let me start with one simple word: why the world has changed in terms of energy efficiency, or in particular for the energy efficiency after the Paris Agreement. India started energy efficiency as a big movement since constitution of this Energy Conservation Act. The Bureau of Energy Efficiency was set up, a big step from the government side, setting up such a ambitious and very important institution for the country. But considering the fact that a large amount of energy we were consuming during 2000 or 2002, and the energy which is yet to be under the demand, or the demand for energy will continue to grow in coming decades, there is a vast difference, not only in terms of the per capita energy or even per capita electricity to be used by every countryman, but at the same time, the kind of energy which is required at the industry level, at the transport level, and now the sector where it will grow definitely and very fast is the building sector, especially the commercial building. Commercial building, because they are the buildings or the kind of they are housing, they are the establishments which are going to have the enterprises. The service sector, as everybody, the biggest contribution to the economy. There will be many large demand on the commercial buildings. Now these commercial buildings will have many more energy demand in terms of the gadgets, the kind of air conditioning, the kind of other infrastructure, IT infrastructure. Most of the functioning of these establishments will continue to grow in terms of higher bandwidth, higher participation in online system. So the building sector in this decade, 21 to 30, will be the biggest sector which is going in terms of energy demand. And maybe we expect that by 2030 or maybe by 2035, we will have a switch that from the highest energy consuming sector, we will have building as the forefront rather than the industry which has been there for last many decades. Now, this is what I want to say about the kind of energy growth. But what especially has happened, which was not there from 2002 when the BE was set up and after 2016, the Paris Agreement. A major push from the world, and especially India being the leader, to combat the climate change, to take actions to meet our climate goals, to take action to fulfill our Paris Agreement targets. All these things have actually kind of changed the definition of energy efficiency. We started energy efficiency more of an individual perspective, a parameter which is more beneficial to the user. The beneficiary is going to get lesser energy cost. There is a estimation of payback period. There is a calculation of return. And finally, we want to say which is the energy, which is the technology, the kind of action we want to take, energy efficiency measures we want to take, how much it is going to actually get the return. Within how many years the investment will get back. That is something which was much simpler, but it is in the past. Now we are trying to keep not only as an individual parameter, we are trying to get it how much the sector can save. If not how much sector, how much fuel we can save, which kind of fuel we are going to save. What is the new technology coming up? Is it the same fuel? Is it going to be the low carbon technology? Will it be a fuel switch? Will that be a saving on the demand side? Will it be a infusion of renewables, whether it's solar, wind, or any other kind of biomass, biofuel, or even the latest in line, the hydrogen? All these opportunities have come up. That has given a much larger perspective of energy efficiency. If I give a simple example, I want to put a solar rooftop. What should I do? If I get an audit, I must have a 10 kilowatt solar panel. So I will need a cost for 10 kilowatt solar panel. I will need a cost for the controller, the associated cabling, wiring, etc. Everything to 10 kilowatt. But if I get the energy efficiency done, change my lighting, change my gadgets, do whatever improvement I can do, and I can bring down the demand from 10 kilowatt to 6 kilowatt before putting the solar PV. Now I have the reduced cost for the solar PV, the reduced cost for the cabling, the reduced cost for the controller. All these things is possible only by taking energy efficiency measures. Now that's why the energy efficiency is called cross-sectoral initiative. It is not only now limited to a particular individual, to a particular process or a system or installation. It is going cross-sectoral. The benefits are very huge. And that's why now we have started calling energy efficiency as the first fuel all over the world. We had the 4 fuels, coal, oil, gas, and the renewables. But now we are calling energy efficiency as the first fuel. Coming specific to the sector-wise, energy efficiency in industry sector, Bureau started with the PAD scheme, very ambitious scheme. It was really a tough task to get the industries on board, because they have their business compulsions, they have their different technologies, different fuel mix, and different specific energy consumption. Each sector has a particular product or a combination of product, but for which there is an input of energy. How can we give benchmark each and every sector, each and every industry? But Bureau started doing it with baseline audits, with technological assessment, And finally, we could have a very clear targets in terms of specific energy consumption for the 3-year period. 3 year was considered as sufficient duration so that industry can take decision in terms of their technology improvement, in terms of their improvement in their auxiliary consumption. They can remove their or eliminate their wasteful consumption. They can improve their accessories or equipment, change them, put some additional inputs, something like VFD or maybe automatic system. They can do a lot of housekeeping and reap the benefits of low-hanging fruits, like changing their pipelines, steam lines, pressure lines, or even all other housekeeping measures. They can do it. That started with our first phase. Initially, every industry, every sector has some kind of apprehension. How can we have such a big scheme covering almost 35 to 40% of the energy of the industrial consumption with a single initiative in such a vast country, first-hand experience? But by the time we came to 2015, all of us were quite in mature stage. Industry realized it's going to be a good benefit for them. And then came the Paris Agreement. And by 2015-16, we had our assessment done, the monitoring and verification was completed. Most of the industries have done a really good job. At the same time, I must say, the support from the energy auditors, the energy managers. Every industry appointed the energy manager, a qualified person. We got more than 5,000 by that time, 5,000 energy auditors, about 9,000 energy managers, and all of them started working for each sector very, very professionally. And all of them actually had so much contribution in PAT1 scheme. Now, this gave real boost to the industry as well as all the stakeholders, including Bureau of Energy Efficiency. Let me again complicate the kind of efforts, which I must say, efforts put in by the industry and all other professionals, including EA, EMs, to make the PAT1 scheme at such a new scale that the PAT2 was really, really professional assignment. The PAT2, we gave much more targets. Over and above the PAT1 achievement, we started expecting that new technologies will get in. 3 new sectors were added. First time, the service sector could include, like railways, discoms, refineries, such a complex industry was included. But all of them really did well in PAT2. PAT2 was real exercise where the profession was reached to very, very huge scale, and the competence of almost now 15,000 energy managers and auditors, they really helped a lot. We changed the methods, we improved a lot. We held the energy auditing and the monitoring verification with the help of experts. So we changed the regulation, stating that not only the auditor team will go, it will be accompanied by sectoral experts, so that we can have both sides. We can understand the technology, we can understand the assessment of the energy saving measures. At the same time, how much they have done improvement in each sector. It really gave a big push to the industry energy efficiency scheme. The first cycle, when we had a target of 6.68 million ton, and we could save 8.68, it was really a heartening note. But the second cycle was more challenging because we were actually working at a stage where we had already reaped the benefit of all the low-hanging fruits. So it was a real exercise. But the response from the industry was really overwhelming. Even I think about the 60% industries who shared the kind of investment they gave, it was 43,000 crore, as against something around 9,500 crore in the first cycle. When we assess the outcome in terms of CO2 mitigation, it was 61 million ton of CO2 as against 31 million ton in first cycle. So I must compliment the hard work done for the PAT cycle too, which I still believe was one of the biggest challenge. And the most important, we covered almost 50% of industry consumption in one single initiative. And let me understand that 304 million ton of oil equivalent covered in single scheme, in single initiative with single notification, maybe one of the biggest scheme perhaps the world would have seen. 304 million ton of oil, more than many of the countries' overall yearly consumption. Cycle 2, 17, new third cycle 18, 19, 20, 21. Now we already have 1,000 plus consumers. In a way, what is benefit? Benefit is that we are having a top-down approach. We are taking the minimum number of consumers with the maximum number of energy conservation covered. Can you imagine just 1,000 consumers covering more than 55% of the industrial consumption with one single scheme? And then there are associated benefits. So it doesn't mean that the benefit is only limited to those 1,000 consumers. There is a lot of capacity building happening, lot many new technologies coming up. The service providers are gearing up, lot of improvements happening in auxiliaries, the way the systems are installed, the way the refurbishment has been done, the changes in the new components, the automation, the nature of energy audit being done. Everything is actually improving year by year, and that is only happening to the medium scale industries, the small industries. So everybody is getting the benefit of consumers. On paper, yes, we are covering 1,000 plus industries in the PAT scheme, but in real fact, there are many more thousands who are getting the benefit, because the entire industry sector is getting improvement. The CO2 saving which we are doing for not only the 1,000 industries, it is also giving benefit to the other sectors. There are other energy intensive sectors, may not be that much intensive, but they are also getting the technological advantage. The kind of investment which is happening at large industries is also percolating to the lower category of industry. And most important, the SMEs who are not much bothered about the energy consumption, because for their individual unit consumption is very less. You don't want to do so much of exercise, don't want to do so much technology upgradation unless they are forced to do so, but they are all getting benefits. So the entire ecosystem is actually improving, and these 5 years from 2016 to 2020 or 2021 now have really seen the change in the perception of energy efficiency, especially in the industry sector. I'll try to conclude the industry sector before I'm going to. And now we have many more things to see in the coming years, especially starting with the industry 4.0. How are we going to leverage this particular approach for saving energy? Second most important, the carbon market. We now want to move into the low carbon technology. We want to make use of the renewables as far as possible, whether in terms of grid electricity, whether in terms of solar thermal, whether in terms of any fuel or any other kind of a carbon neutral energy source. How are we going to get the credit for that? How do we incentive such exercise? Should we only limit to energy efficiency, or should we also incentivize CO2 as a not only specific energy consumption, but specific carbon consumption, specific CO2 consumption? Can we improve that? We are now working on this aspect. We want to work on carbon credits as a new incentive for the PAT industry, or maybe even beyond. This could be the next item, where in coming future, maybe starting with the voluntary kind of some kind of incentive. If you want to switch to a low carbon technologies, there should be some kind of incentive. So this could be one area where we can work upon in the coming 3 to 5 years. The other thing could be what kind of financing assistance we can give. There could be a very robust institutional arrangement where we can go for a new technology transfer, maybe the latest technology, and there should be a ready finance available. So all these things can be addressed. We are already in the phase of ISO deployment of ISO 50001, which is again a good management system where the industry can be benefited. We are trying to have energy management manuals for the industries, and now we can actually start reaping the benefits of digitalization as well as the automation in this sector. I would see that in the coming decade, the industry will still continue to be the biggest consumer for the energy, but at the same time, I will also see that the industry will be the fastest moving towards the low carbon technology and also giving the maximum benefits of energy efficiency. Now coming back to the transport sector. Transport sector is something which will, in terms of fuel efficiency norms. The benefits are yet to come, but the response here is not only from the industry. It is also needed from the consumer side. Consumers have started responding. They are offering a very positive attitude towards high efficiency vehicle, high mileage vehicle, and more so that they want to go for more and more energy efficient like hybrid. They want to go for electric vehicles. There is some kind of interest in the hydrogen. In globally it has started. In India is also expected very soon once such models are there. So a lot of enthusiasm in terms of consumer, and that will motivate the industry, the automobile manufacturers to actually respond. They will come up with the better models, the more energy efficient models. They will come up with more variety of electric vehicles, not only with four-wheeler or two-wheeler, three-wheel, but maybe we will soon have better options in other categories like light commercial vehicle, heavy-duty vehicles. So I'm sure in coming 3 to 5 years, the transport sector will see a major change in terms of their energy consumption. Their mileage will improve, their low carbon footprint, the carbon footprint will improve. And I think the modal shift will be a one big change. The modal shift from individual car to the public shared public mobility or metro systems, which is coming in most of the cities. The major improvement in the shift from road-based heavy-duty transport to dedicated freight corridor, which is the Indian Railways new initiative. We expect corridors to be commissioned very soon, and they will have a major change when we will have the energy consumption on transport sector being optimized with the better efficient mode, better efficient transport alternative, equal are taking a lot of interest in improving energy efficiency in civil efficiency, not only at the airport level, but also at the fleet and the aircraft level. And I'm sure in coming 3 to 5 years, where the CORSIA schemes and ICAO initiatives are there, the civil aviation sector, which is also a very big growing sector in last 5 years, we have seen in coming decade, will have a lot of improvement in energy efficiency. I'm yet to see something on the shipping sector, but definitely such measures will be quite useful in shipping sector. Coming back to the building. Now the buildings, as I said, is something which is going with great guns in coming decades. Next 10 to 15 years, we are going to construct almost half of the India, especially in the commercial building. And as I said earlier, we are going to have most of these commercial establishments air conditioned. And air conditioning means the cooling sector will have the biggest rise in the demand. As per the estimate, and that is also given in the India Cooling Action Plan, a very, very effective document and setting out the actions in coming 10 to 20 years, we will have cooling demand rising by almost 3 to 4 times. But there are ways, there are initiatives, there are means we can optimize this demand, and we can cut down it by at least 80 gigawatt of cooling. Today we have almost 120 billion units, rising to almost 360 billion units. We can have almost 100 billion units coming down if we take very aggressive measures on the cooling sector. It can start from the standards and labeling, the efficiency part, the air conditioners, but BE has introduced must compliment here a very significant action taken by Mission Innovation under the leadership of Department of Science and Technology in association with Bureau and DST and other partners. The cooling reward, the Global Cooling Challenge, has really come out well, and we got a very good finalists. 4 finalists were there, and they are able to demonstrate 1/4 impact of the new air conditioner design. I'm very keen to see such very high efficient and low environment impact air conditioners to be in the market in next 2 to 5 years, and I'm sure it will change the game. The way we have seen the changes in the LED lighting, the lighting systems have really changed by the LED technology. I will see that similar thing happening in the cooling sector, and especially on the air conditioning at the lower capacity and the rooms and the offices. Apart from that, the building construction itself will be of key issue. We have already put forth the ECBC 2017, which is a very comprehensive code defining the commercial buildings in 5 different categories with 17 subcategories. And I'm very happy that almost 20 union territories and states, 18 states and 2 UTs have already put forth their notification making it mandatory. Most of the ULBs have already started making the building of approval in design level itself, and later on the construction level in terms of conservation building code approvals. The architects, the developers, and most of the material suppliers, they will have an entirely a different game plan. They will think entirely a different manner and start making buildings which are not only the basic compliance for the energy conservation building code, but they will go for higher levels, which is ECBC plus and ECBC super ECBC. With this, we can expect almost 30 to 40% reduction in the demand from the building sector. And overall, we could see almost 300 billion units of electricity saving by 2030 by using these ECBC buildings. A great help in reducing the electricity consumption. That way, we are actually going to have a large impact on reducing our energy intensity. Apart from building sectors, as I said, the appliance sector has been the key initiative from the beginning. Why it is so important? Because actually the appliance is initiative where the response comes from the household consumer. Each one of us, as a common household consumer, we are using these appliances. Most of these appliances which are energy intensive, and let me say, how do we really find energy intensive? Where perhaps the capital cost of an equipment is only 5 to 10%, and the remaining 80–90% cost actually comes from the lifetime energy cost. So if we can purchase an air rupees, the cost of energy bill in coming 8 but over the years, we got really big response from consumers. That has motivated to ratchet up our energy consumption, energy performance tables, the star levels, the performance criteria have been improved systematically over the last 10 years. And in last 5 years, we have seen that most of these performance levels or the criteria have been upgraded 2 or 3 times. In coming years, we are going to further improve them depending on the technology and the market assessment. But I must thank the stakeholders, the manufacturers, the designers. They have done a lot of efforts in improving their design, putting forth a variety of models, the most efficient models, and now we have started talking about super efficient models. The retailers, the consumers have responded well, and now we are talking really energy efficiency in terms of the appliances, a common household name. The star label is quite popular in most of the household, and that way it is strengthening the energy efficiency movement. That also gives a lot of change in their mindset. Procurement of energy efficient equipment, coupled with their tendency to save the environment, the individual household or individual citizen's commitment to improve the carbon footprint of his own house or his office or his shop and overall society is giving a positive benefit in saving our carbon footprint for the Finally, let me say that all these energy efficiency measures actually need a lot of investment. But when these are all demand side management initiatives, we also find that end user efficiency, when it is improved, the cost of investment, the cost of improvement or the cost of measure is quite less as compared to if we take the supply side measure. If you want to set up a power plant or even a solar plant, the cost is much higher, and I guess if we take some energy efficiency measures, that means even within the 1/4 or 1/5 cost, we can perhaps indirectly take similar benefits as against the overall supply cost and the investment. But that requires a lot of mobilization of finance, because the opportunities exist in different sectors, as I mentioned, from industry, transport, building, MSME, and even the appliances. But there are many more areas where the finance is required. As I mentioned, building is one area where the energy efficient housing scheme can be coupled with financing incentive. MSMEs can be given a lot of financial benefits. But can we move on to the new sectors, the municipalities, the agriculture? All these require energy efficient initiatives, energy efficiency initiatives, energy efficiency measures, and the kind of investment which is there. Upcoming areas like logistics, cold chain, the SME sectors like foundry, dairy, food processing, and maybe new areas like, as I mentioned, the healthcare and tourist sector, the hospitals, the institutions, all of them, if we put financial support through ESCO model, the energy service company model, where investment can be done and the payment can be done based on the energy saving method, it can actually improve a lot of energy efficiency and new sectors. I believe the mission document. As you know, from 21 to 30, India will be working on the new climate change mission with almost 10 to 11 new missions. Energy efficiency will be used through or will be deployed through Roshni mission, the roadmap for a very systematic and holistic national energy efficiency model. We have noted all the sectors, all the action plan, and all the initiatives, and who are the stakeholders who will actually take action. We have given a good trajectory for CO2 as well as energy efficiency improvement. And finally, we believe that in coming years, necessary investment will be there so that we can have energy efficiency targets and CO2 reduction targets fulfilled by 2030. In conjunction, we have also developed Unnati as a working document, which is actually the action plan and a different scale and short-term as well as medium-term benefits as well as actions, which can actually be taken by sectoral and the field actors. And finally, we can see how much we are able to achieve, whether new improvement is required, new initiatives are required, any more investment is needed in particular sector, and finally, any efforts required for capacity building, technology transfer, etc. So the Unnati and the Roshni documents are actually going to have benefit or steer the complete ecosystem or energy efficiency, leading to our desired results of CO2 mitigation. All these will be coupled with similar actions on the renewable side, new opportunities on whether it's a transport sector supported by electric mobility, industry sector and transport sector supported by new hydrogen missions. Already an aggressive target on renewable capacity from 175 gigawatt to 450 gigawatt All these initiatives will actually complement the efforts of energy efficiency. And I believe all the technical institutions, the think tanks, the government actors, state actors, as well as the service providers and the implement agencies, including the state and central PSUs, will do a lot of actions in the energy efficiency to fulfill the targets given in these two documents. Let me compliment all the stakeholders who are becoming partner to the BE's initiative, and we are always there to seek further inputs, learn from all of you, know your feedback and suggestions, and we can further improve upon all the initiatives which Bureau is taking on behalf of our Government of India Ministry of Power and in association with all the other ministries, department. State agencies are also our partners, and they have to play a key role, and all the institutions can support BE in taking forward this initiative. Let me thank CII for inviting me for this very important lecture series, and I wish CII to continue such initiatives in future. And we are also benefited by the partnership from CII in many energy efficiency measures, including industry as well as transport. Once again, thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Bakre. Thank you very much for your address. I think in about half an hour's time, you have covered on the country's initiatives on almost all the key areas of energy efficiency. You started with energy transition and spoke about how Paris Agreement is redefining the way India is looking at energy efficiency. Again, this is a very unique perspective that you brought in, sir, in terms of the PATH scheme being the largest energy efficiency program in the world, a scheme which can make an impact in such a large energy consuming sector. I think you have touched upon all of them, sir. MSMEs, Industry 4.0, carbon markets, transport, building, access to finance, and finally said Roshni and Unnati documents kind of give a direction and way forward as far as implementation of measures are concerned. Mr. Bakre, there are a lot of questions that have come up in our Q&A window. I'll try to group them in some of the key areas, sir. For example, on PAT, on DISCOMs, on SMEs, and so on. So I'll go one by one. The first set of a large number of questions were around PAT scheme, sir. In the PAT scheme, there are basically three sets of questions which are coming in. One set is, are we looking at more sectors to be covered in PAT scheme? If so, what are the new sectors that you're contemplating, and how do we widen and deepen the PAT scheme? The second question, which has come from a large number of users, is on the ESCert pricing, sir. The ESCert trading and the ESCert pricing. And the third is there a possibility that you see tomorrow in terms of looking at ESCert pricing or trading with carbon pricing or carbon tax scenario? I mean, is there a future pathway where the initiatives taken towards carbon reduction by organizations also can be considered as ESCert? I mean, a discussion on that. So on PAT, these were three predominant set of questions that had come, sir. If you could please respond.
Yeah, thank you, Kiran, and very, very pertinent questions. I must thank these are the three key issues which Bureau is currently considering very, very actively and trying to get inputs or seek input. We have got a good response in last 2 cycle and now PAT 3 cycle. To really go into the deeper, going to cover in the, it is easy for same sector which has already been included in this PAT scheme to go a little deeper. We don't want to go too deep because here the cost of implementation monitoring will unnecessarily increase without getting benefit, because by giving them mandatory target, if we are going to get benefit or the sector is going to get benefit, that's right, it is a good step. But as I said initially, even though there may be 100 industry in a particular sector, but it doesn't mean that there are another 200 industries which are below the threshold. They are also indirectly getting benefited because there is a sectoral capacity coming up. There are initiatives coming up in those sectors. So we can't say that the initiatives or the technology deployment is limited by the PAT scheme, because the industry or the consumers which are below that threshold, they are also equally eligible for such benefits. So the technology providers, the the capacity building is benefiting to that sector also. This is regarding the deepening. The widening, yes, there are areas where we are finding its potential, which were not included now. But again, as I said, we don't want to go to every sector. If we see that there are sectors which require genuine intervention, which we believe that energy intensity is really high, and there are efforts available or efforts needed to bring down that one, we can encourage them, and some kind of incentive is needed. Yes, we want to take those sectors. And the remaining sectors, which we believe they are already gearing up, they are already preparing, already getting indirect benefit, as I said, further in getting them into the PAT scheme, if they can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Now we can. I think we lost you at the time when we were talking about widening the PAT scheme, sir. We lost you for a few seconds from that time onwards.
Okay. For the widening, as I said, there may be certain sectors which need intervention in terms of PAT or similar action, and we believe they are quite mature to get into. We would definitely consider, and definitely there will be many more sectors being added. But if there are sectors which do not need further intervention and also doing well, there is no need to include them. Now, in terms of the improving the price of the ESCert as well as the fungibility in terms of carbon, as I said, the apprehension that the energy efficiency is only benefiting to a particular industry is no longer valid now, because now we are considering energy efficiency as a first pillar in our energy transition. We want to go to a low carbon economy. We want to decarbonize the different sectors of the economy. We want to move towards electrification so that we can use more renewables. So we are trying to come out with solutions where not only the energy efficiency will be incentivized in terms of the energy certificates alone, but by having some kind of further additional benefits, whether it could be kind of compatible carbon saving on a voluntary basis, whether it could be in terms of any other benefits, or on a long-term trajectory, if they are able to have the long-term trajectory in energy efficiency transition. Finally, we want to also improve the price of both these, so that the cost, because more and more we go for a technology deployment, we will need further investment. And I think the incentive should be able to actually compensate the kind of return which they are getting. Yeah, please, Kiran, please go ahead. Next set of
sorry, sir. Yeah, the next were around the ESCO opportunities, sir. I think the Unnati report also lays a huge potential for ESCO implementation. Two specific questions have come, sir. One is, do you see any role for a policy instrument to be looked at in ESCO? That is number one. And second is, many of the ESCO projects have a huge difficulty in the measurement and verification, sir. Is there any role or any thought for BEE to look at conducting a measurement and verification certification program like the CEAs and CEMs, maybe to accelerate more number of players who can do the M&V successfully for ESCO projects? And do you see that as an opportunity for more ESCO projects uptake, sir? These were two questions.
Yeah. So as you rightly said, that ESCOs have to actually do a major job in coming decade. The Unnati document, if you find the kind of investment which is almost 1 lakh crore per year, so total average, if I can say, 10 lakh crore investment expected or the opportunity exists. So even if I pick up 10% of that, or maybe 20% of that, that means 2 lakh crore in next 10 years. So that kind of investment cannot come directly from the consumer. So there will be a big role the ESCOs have to play. Now, as I said, once the demand will increase, when we change the perception of energy efficiency from saving energy to saving carbon, the demand will increase, because now consumers will start pursuing much higher ambitions rather than only meeting the target. Now, this can only happen, as I said, this can only happen, there is a huge investment, and every investment cannot be done by the consumer. There will be more business models coming up. ESCOs have to play a much wider role, and very rightly said, once the ESCOs started making their role, their first barrier will be what kind of M&B protocol exists. So we started trying to work on that. We understand the challenges which ESCOs are facing, because the banks or the financial institutions, when they are lending, they will always go for a secured payment kind of a models. There should be a very defined, well-defined and accepted protocol. So these are all new challenges. I believe the Unnati document addresses this, and we need to work a lot in these areas in coming years, so that ESCO comes out with a much better role in the coming decade. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, sir. The next set of questions were around the SMEs, sir. You touched upon SMEs and how energy efficiency is becoming more and more important. 3 specific questions, sir. One, are there any areas that you see BE can play a role in terms of mainstreaming energy efficiency in SMEs? Second, is there any role for industry associations, sir? Because many of the SMEs are operating in clusters, and there is an industry association which is quite active. And is there a role for industry associations to play a role there? And third, you touched upon S&L programs, sir, where a large number of products are now available for consumers to make a choice. Do you see more number of industrial products also coming in, the smaller size industrial products, which can make the decision making for SMEs much more easier in terms of adopting energy efficiency products? So these were 3 specific questions on SMEs.
So Kiran, I will answer these questions in 2 parts. The first part, as you rightly said, the MSMEs have to start getting benefit. As I said, when we start talk about the deepening means we are lowering the threshold, and that means we will start overlapping our target group to medium industry, then slowly to small industry, depending on the sector we are talking. So there are sectors where the energy consumption will continue, will be quite significant, and SMEs, we generally talk wherever the input cost of energy is more than 20% in their overall input cost of SME business, we say they are energy intensive SME sector. So with this definition, there are about 150 to 180 major clusters, because they are more defined or rightly defined in terms of cluster approach. And out of these, we have picked up 45 clusters from the 9 sectors, each sector 5. So we want to attack with them. Already many schemes or programs have been implemented. World Bank, UNIDO, and similar initiatives have taken place. So a kind of understanding how the energy efficiency can percolate in SME sector, now Bureau has a fairly good idea. So we want to go to a next step, which we are in kind of a very advanced stage. We are doing technology mapping. Now that technology mapping in every sector will tell us so many new things. That means whether the equipment replacement is a significant part, or whether the process upgradation is a more important. So, and it will vary from sector to sector. So these initiatives or this mapping, which is happening now for 45 clusters, which we will try to further expand it to remaining 100 also. So we will try to touch 150 clusters in next 3 years, where we will do the technology mapping, followed by what is the energy efficiency improvement initiative or intervention. So this is first part. The second part, as you said, this technology mapping, how do we really take forward? Are we going to replace only the industrial equipment? That's also a significant approach. That will, even if that reduces the cost of input energy, that will be quite helpful. But at the same time, whether the ESCO model will be approached, because the financing will again come back, whether the new technology, because SMEs per se are quite flexible. That's their beauty or their strength. And we should keep the flexibility of SME sector as it is. And we want to have intervention energy efficiency improvement, keeping their basic structure intact. So that way we should offer them a very flexible bouquet of opportunities, and that can improve them. Finally, as you said, once we are ready with the kind of bouquet or the kind of opportunities, we will definitely approach, and in most of the sectors or the industry institutions are going to play, because they are the best judge how to percolate. They have a good strength at the field level. We or even other partners cannot have that much bandwidth to actually reach the SMEs. So industry associations have to play. Maybe they can cooperate or collaborate with the ESCOs. And I believe SME sectors in next 3 to 5 years will be, B has already started for the last 2 years on SMEs. And we will have many more initiatives for SME sector in coming 2 to 3 years. Yeah, thank you, Kiran.
Thanks, sir. Sir, 2 questions on DISCOMs, sir. DISCOMs have already been included in PAT scheme. You've covered that in your address, sir. 2 specific questions. Are there any other opportunities or mechanisms that we can look at in terms of accelerating the demand side management initiatives that the DISCOMs are taking? And the second question is, sir, in line with the large industry, sir, what do you see as the future of the captive power plants? And do you see a large amount of the consumption also shifting towards the grid for primarily the efficiency and the heat rate benefits, sir? Do you see that as a role where a large number of CPPs will be shifting towards the grid for consumption?
See, honestly, can you hear me, Kiran?
Yeah, now we can hear you, sir. Yes, please go ahead.
See, honestly, these are the initiatives, or I should say reforms, already being undertaken by Ministry of Power at a large scale. So they have a much larger mandate and larger action plan to improve or the revival or the strengthening of DISCOMs. So they are already taking various actions and reforms, and I need not repeat here because they are happening systematically, and they will continue in coming years, and DISCOMs will have to play a major role. Now, from energy efficiency or decarbonization point of view, I must say, when we have the aggressive targets on renewables, we should have a very effective way of utilizing this solar energy or the renewable energy. And electrification is a much better route, as far it is also universally accepted, and especially in a country like India, the electrification is a much better option rather than going for any other kind of a renewable fuel. So in that manner, electrification will help a lot. Currently, we are around 19% of consumption part in terms of electricity. So about 80% is there. Even if we go from 19 to say 13% in coming 10 years or 12 years, that will improve a lot of opportunity in terms of the energy saving. Because electricity-based appliances or technologies have a much wider scope of energy efficiency improvement. It is universally accepted. They have a better control, automation, etc. is also possible. Technology options are also more available in the electricity-based technology. So I believe infusing renewables and going. Hello. Yeah.
Yes, sir. We lost you for a few seconds. We heard you until infusing renewables, sir.
Yeah. So for infusing renewables in industry or other technologies, now transport sector is coming up with e-mobility and maybe followed by hydrogen. So in that regard, infusing renewables in these sectors of economy, which are major consumers, will definitely lead to electrification as a better option for us. Now, finally, as you said, how the CPP will be viewed. CPP, as I said, the power sector reforms will have a kind of a market case where the industry, all the consumers will decide whether they want to shell out the CPP and go towards grid, which is kind of a greener energy, or they would continue. They would like to continue with CPP. So let us see how the reforms take place and how the DISCOMs respond, because it will vary from area to area, state to state, DISCOM to DISCOM. But one thing is sure, that moving towards electrification will be the much better approach, and I'm sure the electrification of our each and every household and each and every village, and further shift towards appliances and per capita electricity consumption, I think the electrification will be the future and a better approach for the economy.
Thanks, sir. The next question is on the large number of certified energy managers and energy auditors which BE has certified over the last 17 years, sir. I think it started in 2004. You mentioned right now we have more than 15,000 energy auditors and managers, sir. I mean, this is a very large pool of talented engineers who have been certified by Bureau of Energy Efficiency, sir. Do you see any more opportunities for them in terms of maybe can they be working in the building sector in the ECBC implementation? Will they have a role on the S&L if it comes for industrial products or technologies? Is there any role where they could play in ESCOs predominantly with MNVs? How can we take advantage of this large pool of certified energy auditors and managers who are available in the country?
Yeah, very rightly said, Kiran. And in fact, you mentioned some of the options also. We also believe that such a large category of professionals which have come, which have contributed and who have played a key role in coming to a stage after 1 decade, bringing the energy efficiency to a center stage and forefront of the various initiatives. I think they will have a big role. Now, let me define, because definitely you would expect a much specific role from them. How can I see that now we have practically say about 15 years from the first examination, maybe 2004-5, and then last 15 years. So we have seen technology involvement, because energy auditors are also kind of a professionals who understand the energy, who know how to actually find out the opportunities. So they have to also they build up their own capacity, which we is trying. But if I start to see their role or compare the role with similar profession or maybe similar cadre, whether it's a chartered accountant is the best similarity. Chartered accountants have come from for many years, 50-60 years, and they have come to a mature stage. But how are actually they playing? They are playing roles in terms of the market demand. So I think we will come to a stage, and as I said in the Unnati, 2-3 options. Once we come to a stage where the ESCO start. Yeah, Kiran. So ESCOs, I think you heard. Yeah.
We heard until you started by saying once the ESCOs start, sir.
So ESCOs, we want to a stage where the individual projects are taken by ESCOs or even by kind of an industry themselves. They themselves come to a stage where they will pick up and then they will call for the energy auditors, and then they can find us, they can offer solutions, or ESCOs can start making it. That is one way of doing it. Second thing, before that, I would say, you can't expect B has come out with another document, Roshni document, a very clear roadmap. And now once more and more this perception of energy efficiency improves, we will see more actors, the more state authorities, the state government. As you rightly said, I did not answer the question of municipalities. The municipalities, or maybe the hospitals, the government or the PWD or CPWD, or maybe even the defense establishment, railways, they started going out for tenders. They started going out for their own action plan roadmap, improving their efficiency in their individual establishment units, etc. When the implementation of the energy efficiency is actually decentralized, it has taken to state level, district level, even ward level, then you will find that all projects coming up at those cases. And who are going to support this? The implementation will be done by ESCOs. The creation of those projects, the monitoring of those projects will actually be done by the energy auditor and professionals. They are going to play. The way the market is now being, financial things are happening through chartered accountants, or the health facilities are done by doctors. So I would see comparison with chartered accountants who are offering them solutions, who are doing their verification. So when we go the implementation at a very, very decentralized level, when we cover every sector, not only these PAT sector or SME sector, when we will go to every part of country where the energy is being consumed, then their role will, and in fact they themselves will start creating their own project. It is just that the snowball has to start rolling, and it has already started rolling. So in coming future, even out of that 15,000, maybe 3,000-4,000 or 5,000 started giving their full time. It will be immediately a sea change in the overall energy efficiency of the country. So I could see a real a big future and big contribution from energy professionals in the coming year, coupled with the ESCOs and the financial banks.
Thanks, sir. I know we are a few minutes beyond our time, sir, but I'll just stop with this last question. A lot of startups are in this session, sir. Many of the startups who have very innovative energy efficiency, either technology or service to offer to both the industry and buildings. I mean, they are very keen to know, I mean, how they could engage with BEE, how they could partner in terms of taking their services or products to a much wider network. I mean, if you could share your thoughts on how BEE can work with startups in terms of furthering their energy efficiency technologies or services.
Yeah, this is definitely one area where I must admit that BEE needs to work a little more. The R&D, the startup, and the kind of pilots, if they are happening. As of now, we believe that energy efficiency is taken where the technology is proven, and the kind of, in fact, even the proven technology, the risk is still considered very high by the financial institutions. So going up to the startup level is definitely something which is a little later, but I think we can't ignore the condition that startups or the innovations will play a big role in coming year. We need to really work with the concerned stakeholders, get more inputs. But I must say DPIIT has started working last 2 years. They have energy and energy efficiency and clean energy startups. They have the startup challenge. And last 2 years, I am in their jury and I am really getting very good applicants, and I could see a good innovation coming up. But yes, some more handholding, some more institutionalization of startups and the new innovations. Mission innovation is also one area where DST, DVT are working. But I think, as I said, more and more decentralized things happening, more and more sectors getting covered. This entire ecosystem will move towards clean energy deployment, and there the starter will also join the mainstream, and their role will be quite significant in coming years. But yes, we need to wait for a couple of more years. Yeah.
Thanks, sir. I think we are 5 minutes past the time that you gave us today. There are some more questions in terms of technologies like carbon capture, hydrogen, or Industry 4.0 and others, sir. But I think in the interest of time, I'll skip them. Maybe I can just leave the floor to you, sir, to say any closing words before we close this session, sir. Over to you.
No, I can say one thing, that every stakeholder who have been involved, we have, I must say, first 5 years, say 2006 to 11. Kind of setting up an institution, last one decade, 11 to 20, kind of experiment and defining the energy efficiency, getting all the stakeholders together, initiating the programs, policies, and especially the last 5 years post Paris Agreement, revamping our approach on on energy efficiency as a cleaner or a low carbon initiative have come a long way, but we have learnt a lot. Now we want to go further with much more enthusiasm. We need to cover a lot. We need to include more stakeholders. We need to expand our coverage in terms of more area, locations, sectors. And I think we should have more opportunities, more business models. Different policies need not be everything mandatory. I think there is a next 5 years will be much more crucial. We have defined 2 documents, but next 5 years will actually take us in much more leadership. India is already considered as a leader in energy efficiency, and all the stakeholders will really work hard and join hands with Bureau and Government of India to take forward this movement and next 5 to 10 years, we'll see a major change in the deployment of energy efficiency. Thank you so much.
Sir. Excellent address, sir. Thank you. Thanks for your time today. Thanks for your address, sir, and also patiently answering all the questions that the participants had on a variety of topics and areas of interest, sir. Thank you very much for joining us today. It was a pleasure listening to your addresses, sir, and I'm sure all the participants here would have immensely benefited from your address today. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks for your time and for your address today.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you, Mr. Bakre. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Venkatji.